So we have with us here today Devang Mehta, who is from Anthill. He's a partner from Anthill Ventures, and they have just started an exciting project called Lumos. So we're going to talk a lot about that. Devang, thank you for taking the time out to do this interview with India Global Business.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks, Devang. And now I'm really excited to know about Lumos because I know that Anthill is just partnered with HCG, and they've started this platform called Lumos Health. Can you tell us a little bit about what Lumos is and what was the inspiration for starting it off?
Sure. So as you might know, HCG is India's biggest oncology chain. And Anthill is a speed scaling ecosystem. So we invest and scale early stage companies at pre-Series A and Series A. Lumos is an initiative by both Anthill and HCG. It is a healthcare accelerator, and it endeavors to help early stage companies scale through both business and technical interventions and take them to newer growth trajectories. These interventions are primarily through, the advisory comes from luminaries and experts from HCG and other associated hospitals, as well as from the large network Anthill has. And the idea is to, help a startup grow to a point where it's ready for the next round of funding or the next stage in its growth evolution.
So what was the inspiration behind linking up with HCG in particular? Could you just explain a little bit about that, please?
Right. So I think the broad philosophy is that we've realized, and as part of Anthill's DNA, is that startups don't need just capital. They also need advisory and mentorship to grow. So to be a true value-added provider of capital, you need to provide advisory, and advisory comes in many forms. But usually, what a startup needs at that stage is the right mentorship, the right direction in terms of product market fit, or the right pricing or market segments and things like that, and the right clinical validation really to get off the ground and start hitting growth strides. And so that was the real inspiration behind setting up a healthcare accelerator to complement what we do from the funding side.
And Devang, I've just been reading up on Lumos and Anthill as well, and I recently read that you've picked a few exciting winners for the platform. Could you tell us a little bit about those companies, please?
Yeah, one standout winner is a company called Chronic Air based out of Singapore. So they started off, and they still do largely their main business is that of a wound scanner. So they take the traditional process of wound management and apply layers of AI and ML so that what takes a skilled nurse about 30 to 40 minutes to do can now be done through their device in less than 2 minutes, with obviously much more speed and much better accuracy, and to measure more parameters also. So it greatly simplifies the job of nurses. It induces a lot of efficiencies in healthcare operations at hospitals globally, and goes on by extension to prevent amputations and things like that. So that company is doing fantastic, largely because of the fact that during COVID in the last few months they pivoted their device to a little bit from a wound scanner to a temperature scanning device. So it's called iThermo, and what it does is it can screen up to a dozen people at one time through a temperature measuring device, and it became widely popular in Singapore. So it's being used at foreign worker dormitories, at bus stops, at senior centers, and many public places that need to screen a large set of people at one time for temperature variances, and thereby locate people with one key symptom of COVID. So thanks to this pivot, they've grown a lot, and then their main bread and butter, which is the wound management, wound scanning device, is also doing fantastic in Singapore and other geographies across the world. So it's clearly emerging as a winner inside our portfolio.
Devang, from what I'm getting, and I think you've touched upon a few of those things, there's a lot of exciting development happening within the startups and the healthcare sector. So I was wondering if there are any other exciting companies that you've got in your pipeline for Lumos, and if you could tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, there's a large, shall we say, top of the funnel from a physics standpoint, or from a business standpoint, a lot of companies that are coming into the pipeline at Lumos, and it's varied, it's eclectic, it's across geographies, it's across areas. But the most interesting startups we are seeing, obviously relate to our area of primary interest, which is oncology and its adjacencies. So we are seeing business plans in new biomarkers for detecting cancer, be it through blood or breath or sputum. We are seeing some really nice innovation in digital pathology. We are seeing new checkpoint inhibitors that target the immune system, both innate and reactive. And we are seeing a lot of research in the area of metastases, which in layman's term is the way a cancer spreads across the body. So just studying metastases and containing it is one big step towards containing cancer overall. And we are seeing a lot of interesting business plans in metastases, studying the genesis of metastases as well as to track metastases through things like nanoparticles and things like that. So I think there's a lot of research in those areas, and we're talking to a lot of startups across geographies in these areas. Yes.
I just want to talk a little bit more about that because I've been hearing a lot of interesting talk coming from India about healthcare, and almost like this healthcare in India was kind of propelled into this digital age with COVID-19. Was that one of your reasons for looking into the Indian market? I'm very curious to know why Anthill chose India to scale up, and why now particularly. Was the pandemic one of the reasons, or did you have an eye on it already?
Yeah, candidly, COVID was not a key reason. I think the intrinsics of the market of India, Singapore, and the India-Singapore corridor are so compelling that it's really a natural geography for us to choose for scaling. Of course, we are based here, but I think first is a clear macro picture, the sheer market size, the wealth effect, hundreds of millions of people coming into the middle class, and insurance schemes and all that. There's a much bigger market for healthcare in India, and lifestyle-driven diseases are pretty rampant here because of urban living and things like that. So, for one, it's a huge market. Even given that the per capita spending on GDP by the government is pretty small compared to other geographies, I think it's still a very large market by the sheer volume and size. Now, from the early stage ecosystem, the same dynamics lend themselves well to a lot of things that startups need. For example, a big market, of course, to address, but a lot of data and clinical validation. We all know that good products in AI, ML, or any good algorithm is just predicated on having a lot of good data to test the algorithm on. And that is available in India much more than other parts of the world, I think. So, if you mentor the startup right through an expert in the field with the right sets of data and the right environment, you can build a much better product in India, just on account of all these dynamics. And I think it's a natural place in the world where a lot of R&D and innovation will come from in the upcoming decade.
That's really interesting. I've been talking to some of the other experts in this field as well, and that's why I was looking forward to having this chat with you, Devang, because while there's I think there's a similar sentiment across where everyone is very excited about the healthcare and the startup system within healthcare sectors. I'm always curious to know what are some of the challenges that these startups kind of face. And we are hearing that there are quite a few. So I guess my question would be kind of splitting it in two ways, where if you could explain some of the challenges that the startups face, but also how Lumos is kind of trying to address these challenges and help these startups.
So yeah, challenges are of multiple kinds. One is the overall startup VC ecosystem in India, excuse me, is I would say still evolving. It's come a long way, since even 5 years ago. So, it's not comparable, I would say, to the Silicon Valley or Boston or other parts of the world, but it's still come a long way, but it still needs to go further. Specifically for healthcare startups, I still think the ecosystem is not as evolved on multiple fronts. One is there's not enough real mentors. There's not been cases of unicorn biotech startups coming out of India and selling to big pharma for billions of dollars, for example. So that whole cycle of investment and exit is not there yet. There's not enough case studies and things like that. And on account of that, there's not enough mentors in the space. So startups have good ideas, but they don't have the right mentorship. They don't necessarily have the right examples to look up to. And as a result, they, they still struggle, they grasp at straws to find the best ways to grow in India. Which is why, Lumos, on account of our partnership with HCG, HCG, aside from being India's biggest oncology chain, is also a very entrepreneurial company, what I've seen and what we've seen, compared to other hospital chains in India, at least. So I think they are well evangelized to the fact of working with startups to help create innovation that drives the next gen solutions to cancer and other life-threatening diseases. So I think what is lacking in the ecosystem can be addressed through an accelerator like Lumos, and that is what we are endeavoring to do.
You talked a lot about the lack of mentors for startups, and I've been reading up as well. And I guess one of my questions would be that there's also, and I may be wrong, but this is what I read, was this idea of innovation, where failure isn't always as acceptable as it might be in other parts of the world. So I was wondering if there are a couple of other factors apart from having good mentors or this this mindset towards innovation and failure that needs to change for this sector to grow.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. I think for the most part, the risk-taking culture is again much more than before, but is still not as strong as other parts of the world. So there's a lot of sections of society that still prefer safe jobs, or corporate environments to support them, for lack of a better word. And yes, what you mentioned, there is I guess some loss of face always. I think failure is almost, to some degree at least, almost welcomed. That's in Silicon Valley or very entrepreneurial ecosystems in the globe, because people realize that this entrepreneur has learned a lot from his first failure and is likely to emerge a winner in the next company. I mean, it's not celebrated, of course, but it's not frowned upon. In India, there's loss of face. Your failure to start up, people wonder what you're going to do next. With any corporation will take you, or this or that, or things like that. So there's definitely that social and career barrier to failing at a startup. But I think the key thing is just that the enabling factors in a good ecosystem to help a startup grow is funding, advisory, the right academic support in terms of research, R&D, all aspects that grow into building a good company, right from hiring to the right regulatory landscape, the right avenues to exit, and anything and everything in between are all there in India and are growing, but need to still get further evolved for a vibrant healthcare startup ecosystem to flourish here.
And Devang, for our final question today, and I'm really keen to know, what are the future plans for Lumos? What's in the pipeline for this platform?
Sure. So we want to build Asia's premier healthcare accelerator. We want to be in the critical path of every next generation cancer startup that wants to make a difference in the world through cutting edge innovation. We want to be advising those startups through our mentors, through our luminaries, through data, through validation, through the Indian market, and anything else that we can to help that startup become a unicorn. And we want to be at the forefront, the first port of call for startups in our areas and orbit of interest. Now, through this process, we also want to bring about societal change. We want to be the catalyst for growing all these startups and unicorns to a point where a lot of cures are found, where a lot of lives are saved, where a lot of pain is mitigated, and a lot of societal change comes through as a result of all the innovation that goes to market and succeeds. And that is our goal.
Devang, thank you so much. We at India Global Business wish you all the very best for Lumos, and we will be very eagerly watching the journey for the company as well. But thank you so much for taking the time out today to do this interview with us.
Thank you, Ishita. Appreciate it.